If you're trying to stay inspired on a strict budget, I have 22 meals that'll do the trick. Welcome to Meals with Maria. Today I am inspired by a BuzzFeed article written by a stay-at-home mom of 3 like myself, Sydney from Colorado. She wrote an amazing article that shares 22 of the meals that her family absolutely loves and agrees on, even on a strict budget of $120 a week. Seriously, Sydney has the right ideas. These meals are absolutely fantastic. I tried 3 of them and have made many more over the course of this channel. And I understand all of the trials and tribulations that she feels, but I also believe in the same thing that she does. You can be inspired on a strict budget. There are still amazing, delicious things that you can eat, and there's always room to try something new. I actually messaged Sydney over on Instagram and shared that I was going to be doing this video. So I'm going to put the article as well as her Instagram handle down in the description box so that you can go check her out and give her some love. And I was laughing a little bit because it said stay-at-home mom of 3, but she's working for BuzzFeed, so it's really more of a work-at-home mom, and I feel that pain, I feel that love. I understand how it is to be doing dual jobs, double duty, right? And it's something that you can be super proud of and super grateful for. But it doesn't matter your walk of life or your area of life. If you're on a strict budget, these meals will still help. The first recipe she shared was a lasagna soup. And I had done a lasagna soup years ago in the crock pot and absolutely loved it. This time I decided to try her method. She used one that was in the Instant Pot, so I gave the soup setting a try, which I had never tried before, and it turned out fantastic.
This recipe is awesome because it actually has 3 different methods for cooking, so you can actually cook in your slow cooker, in your Instant Pot, or just on the stove. I chose the Instant Pot method to try it out, try something new, and see if it was any quicker. I started off by sauteing, so you want to press the saute button on the Instant Pot and add a couple tablespoons of olive oil. I had this sweet Italian sausage that I got for $2, so this is seriously a very, very budget-friendly meal. And when you're making a soup like this, you get a lot of flavors for not a lot of ingredients versus lasagna. You really need to kind of bulk things up. Once your oil is hot, you want to add about 1 chopped onion, and then we're going to add in our sausage. I'm just going to kind of peel them out of the casings. If you have uncased sausage, that would work really well too. I think you definitely want to use Italian sausage here though. And then you want to kind of break it up as it's cooking. You're trying to brown it. And then we're going to stir in 4 large garlic cloves minced. If you don't have fresh garlic, you can always use powdered garlic, 2 teaspoons of dried oregano, a half a teaspoon of salt, and a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. And then a 1/4 teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes, or however much you like. If you like it spicy, add a bunch more. If you don't want to have it spicy, you can not even add it at all. Once your sausage is fully browned, maybe about 3 more minutes, we're going to stir in 3 tablespoons of tomato paste and cook for a couple more minutes. We're going to scrape the bottom of the pot pretty well, make sure there's nothing stuck to it. Then you want to stir in 2 cans of fire roasted diced tomatoes, my absolute favorite, 6 cups of chicken broth, and 2 bay leaves. And then you want to press the soup setting, something I had never used before, so I was excited to try something new. And we're going to cook it for about 15 minutes on this setting. And while that was cooking, I mixed up what they call in the recipe the cheesy yum, and I would have to agree because it was really delicious to add to the top of this. So we're not going with just straight ricotta. You want about 8 ounces of ricotta, a half a cup of grated Parmesan cheese, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And I really felt like adding that extra salt really gave it an extra punch of flavor. Ricotta is pretty salty on its own, but just adding a little bit more salt was even more delicious. After the 15 minutes is up, you can remove the lid. It will be pressurized, so just try and do it safely, carefully. And then add in your pasta. You want about 8 ounces of, I used like a cavatappi, which turned out perfect, and it was even like the chickpea pasta, and it still worked according to the directions on this. You could also use like a rotini, or was it a fusilli? Kind of probably butchering these, but that's okay. And then you want to set it again on that soup setting for another 8 minutes, and it's going to cook your pasta, and you can see absolutely how delicious that is. It's a really robust and kind of thicker soup, so my kids are like not big on soup necessarily, so I kind of actually just marketed it to them as more of like a pasta, and they really ended up enjoying it. Tommy ended up having leftovers another day too. It made so much food, so I can also see how this is valuable from a budget perspective because you have a lot of leftovers, which will give you an entire second meal during the week.
Next up, we have a chicken and veggie stir fry, which I have done so many times, and it's always the quickest go-to meal when you just have some chicken in the fridge and you got to get something on the stove quick. I usually keep one of those stir fry vegetable containers in my freezer or some frozen broccoli, and you can mix up a stir fry sauce pretty quickly, or you can buy the packets from Walmart and they turn out amazing. I completely agree that chicken and veggie stir fry is an age-old favorite, super budget friendly, and my family loves it. They like fried rice too, which is kind of on the similar kind of plane. That's also a great one to add to the arsenal. Next on the list is stuffed bagel balls, and I make these in the air fryer. They are absolutely delicious, and my 5-year-old Julian loves them. They are super inexpensive because you can buy biscuit dough at Aldi for like less than $1, and you just put in little cubes of cream cheese and little everything bagel sprinkle over the top. They take next to no time and they freeze up really well. So once you freeze them, you can actually pop them in the toaster oven or the microwave and warm them right up. She notes that there's kind of value in the fact that you already put the cream cheese inside, which I would completely agree on, because with my kids, it's like, can you put the cream cheese on? And sometimes I say, you put the cream cheese on, and they make an absolute mess. So having that already in one compact thing is great for getting off to school in the morning. Number 4, she noted Chipotle style chicken, and I had never made chicken like this before. I tried this recipe out and it was absolutely fantastic. It was definitely the best burrito bowl that I've ever had.
Bowls, like burrito bowls or even burritos in general, always can stretch food so far because you don't have to use a ton of your protein. I just grabbed 3 of these boneless, skinless chicken thighs, seasoned them generously with salt and pepper, and this still covered multiple meals for us because you're still putting rice and you're adding all sort of these other sides, which again, you can use part of these things in other meals during the week. So it's really a helpful kind of like rollover ingredient type meal list that will give you a really robust meal plan, using a little bit of this, a little bit of that in each meal. You want to transfer that seasoned chicken to a Ziploc bag or a bowl, and then you're going to top it with 1 can of chipotle pepper and adobo sauce. Now, the original recipe says to finely dice it, but Sydney mentioned that because there's kids in the family and whatnot, she actually doesn't dice the chilies up and just mixes everything together and then pulls them out when she's done, which I thought was a genius idea. It still ended up quite spicy for us, so I think that her kids or her family likes something spicier, which is totally great, and I kind of wish mine did. But I will be making this for myself and my husband again, but I will not insist that my children eat the spicy chilies. You just want to give this a mix and refrigerate at least 2 hours up to overnight. I just did mine a few hours before I cooked things. Because I was making burrito bowls, I decided to slice up some peppers and onions. And I just cooked those over low heat with some oil, and probably for about 20 minutes. I figured I would get them started nice and early, then get the chicken started and just let them go the whole time so that they get that slow cooked, soft, caramelized flavor. Then in a large skillet over medium heat, you want to heat some vegetable oil or olive oil. I actually used olive oil and it turned out fine. And then you just want to add your chicken with tongs, and you want to cook these for about 4 minutes on each side. My chicken was actually they're pretty big pieces of boneless, skinless thighs. So I ended up probably going a little bit longer than that, maybe 6 minutes per side. It really crisped up. I was surprised. I'm like, oh, the bottom of the pan's getting kind of dark here. Luckily, these caraway pans are fantastic, and I have never had any problems just washing it right off. I was actually showing off to Dan afterwards. I was like, look, this was black, and see it now? Nothing on it. You never would have known. Once the chicken is golden and cooked through, you want to remove it and place it on a cutting board, and then we're just going to chop it up. And then one of those bite-sized pieces, I'm going to transfer them back over to that pan over a medium-high heat and cook for 2 to 3 more minutes. And this really makes sure that the flavor of the sauce gets all around all the pieces of the chicken, and totally worth it to do it this way. I would do it this way 10 times out of 10, and I definitely have a new method now for my burrito bowls. This is certainly a super easy chicken that we'll make again and again. I made up some guacamole with it. I used those peppers and onions, some cheese, sour cream, everything that I would order on a bowl at Chipotle. We had rice in the bottom. You could use cauliflower rice if you want, but it was absolutely great.
That one is definitely a must try. The next recipe she noted is Italian chopped Brussels sprouts salad, and this really intrigued me. It looked so delicious, but I wasn't sure that my entire family would be able to eat it. Because it's a hearty salad, and she notes that it really handles well day to day, so you can make it today and eat the rest of it tomorrow. I thought that would be good for me for lunches, so I made it this past weekend, but I was shocked when Tommy started getting in on the salad, wanted to try a bite, and then insisted on having an entire bowl. All right, we are gonna give this beautiful Italian chopped Brussels sprout salad a try. I'm just gonna start by making the dressing. We need 1/3 cup of olive oil. I do love a salad like this where you just make a homemade dressing because you don't have to buy anything specific, and usually you have what you need on hand. We need 3 tablespoons of red wine vinegar. It's funny because I always thought all red wine vinegar was the same. And I had this Market Basket red wine vinegar, and my mom makes this famous tomato salad, and I'll put a link to that recipe down below. It's in one of my videos. And she goes to make her salad and she's just like, something's not right here. And I said, that's funny because I tried it. I thought something wasn't right too. And we come to realize that red wine vinegar that I just had from the store, like the regular grocery store vinegar, it just wasn't good. I just added 2 teaspoons of sugar in here. You could also use honey if you wanted to. Then the recipe calls for 1 minced clove of garlic, but I have this paste that I've been trying to use up for far too long. We need a teaspoon of Dijon mustard. That's gonna be basically what they call the emulsifier, and it's kind of what's gonna pull everything together in this dressing. So it's very important that you do have that. Then we need a teaspoon of Italian seasoning, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and some fresh ground black pepper. Just gonna give that a good whisk and set it off to the side. So it's gonna be your choice how you wanna do this. I think that it's gonna be way more budget friendly and effective to just buy the Brussels sprouts, but I didn't have it in me to like wash them and clean them. So I saw this package at the store where they were already shredded, and for me, that was a good deal. So it just depends on how you want to do it and how much money you have in your budget. Obviously, if you're on that strict budget, you probably want to cut them up by yourself. I might want to go through and take out some of these ends like this. We don't necessarily want those crispier ends, but at the same time, I'm really not too worried about it. I think they're going to end up tasting fine. And in this salad, there is a little bit of a lot of things. The biggest things that you're gonna be putting in are these Brussels sprouts and a can of drained, rinsed chickpeas. Chickpeas are super inexpensive, especially at like Aldi. You can get them for less than $1. Next, we're gonna use salami. And so I'm just gonna slice this up. Salami is a super inexpensive meat and protein. I was able to buy 0.7 of a pound for like $3.50, and this is only half of that. So for some reason, salami just doesn't weigh a lot. So you always like, if you're gonna get a pound of salami, it's like this huge hunk of salami. So it really goes a long way. And there you have it, salami bowl. The recipe also calls for some cubed provolone cheese. I just had the sliced stuff. At first glance, buying just the ingredients for this recipe feels a little bit expensive to me. But I think once you buy those things, and if you can find a way to kind of use the rest of them throughout the rest of the week, it can be really helpful. So provolone is something that grows great over chicken, especially if you're making like a chicken parm. You want about 1.5 cups of sliced cherry tomatoes. I'm gonna use about half this container. So like I said, this is gonna be great for things later in the week. This would also be a great summertime meal. It is super easy to grow just 1 cherry tomato plant, even if you just have like a balcony or on your front steps, and it will produce a ton of cherry tomatoes. And this is the perfect thing to use that for. You have black olives, you can use those. You can use Kalamata olives, which I was able to get for, I think it was like $2.99 for this package. So that's not super inexpensive. I think the black olives would have been cheaper. I just wanted to try the extra salty Kalamata olives. But we're not gonna use all of them by any means. We're actually only gonna use about 1/4 cup of them. And these are gonna last quite a bit of time in the fridge. So they're gonna be a great thing to save for maybe like a Greek salad or something like that. And then the original recipe calls for pepperoncinis, which you can totally do if you love these. I happen to have these mild banana peppers, and I'm a way bigger fan of banana peppers. And I feel like they're gonna give that same crunch and texture, and on the visual, so pretty. So I'm actually just gonna add all of these in and kind of leave some of the juices on them because I think they're gonna give a good flavor. And then we're gonna want some sliced red onion. I always keep red onions on hand, so that's an easy one for me. I am sure that red onion is delicious and inexpensive, but as always, we can always try and swap things out. Like scallions might be good in this, or even just like really small chopped yellow onions. The Vidalia onions are very, very sweet. Those are delicious too. And I'm just gonna cut these into very thin slices. And then the recipe calls for some shaved or shredded parm, but I just have like this really shredded parm blend, and that's what I'm gonna use. So we're just gonna give this a good toss, get everything really well incorporated, and then I'm gonna pour our dressing over. So everything looks amazing. I'm just gonna serve myself up a bowl here and have some for lunch. So this is absolutely delicious. I love it. And I'm actually wondering if, my mother-in-law usually does everything for Easter, but I feel like this would be like the perfect Easter salad. I absolutely love it, and I would recommend it 10 out of 10. Number 6, she notes Philly cheesesteak sliders, and I have actually done these in the crock pot. They turned out absolutely delicious. She notes them as a Friday night dish, which I think is totally reasonable. Something to kind of switch up your regular Friday night pizza night, or something to look forward to. You can try all different types of sliders. I've done the ham and cheese ones before too, also delicious. Now I still have one on my list to try. This number 7 is a pizza gnocchi, and that sounds incredible to me. Kind of like a pizza casserole or a pizza quesadilla, which we do love. Anything with those pizza flavors, you add in a little pepperoni, cheese, you're gonna have a winner in your household, especially if you have kids or any picky eaters. Next up, she notes hash brown breakfast cups. Now this is another easy one, like those stuffed cream cheese bagels, something you can make ahead or make on a weekend. Super easy, very inexpensive to buy those shredded hash browns, keep them in the freezer, and pop an egg on top. Number 9 is a paprika chicken and rice, and I have made many different versions of this over the years, and I agree. It is a budget favorite because you're using boneless, skinless thighs. I can usually find these on sale for like 99 cents a pound. You can make a one-pot meal with the rice right in the pan, cook some broccoli on the side, and dinner is served. Now I'm going to put the article down in the description box, and the article notes all of the recipes that are noted in this video. I'm also going to put a link to any of the videos that I have actually made the recipe for. So this one, the paprika chicken, I'm gonna put the video down in the description box where I made that so that you can see that footage, and then you can actually check out the full recipe and how I did it for my family. Number 10 is a classic budget favorite. We're talking about soft and fluffy white bread. Making your own bread is one of the easiest ways to save money and make something that is really very special. I have made no knead bread before, and I know that Frugal Fit Mom has a ton of different bread recipes, including a fluffy white bread on her site. So I'm gonna put a link to that down below as well, because she just really has like that plethora of knowledge when it comes to saving money and making your own bread. Number 11 is pasta with sun-dried tomatoes and breadcrumbs, and I'll say this looks absolutely delicious, and if you like sun-dried tomatoes, you should check this recipe out. It looks simple, few ingredients, and something that can definitely get you through on your budget. My husband does not like sun-dried tomatoes, and neither do my kids, so we weren't going to be trying this one, but I've done many different one-pot pastas before to save time and money. I actually have a really good one that is a chicken and vegetable one that I will put the video to down below. For number 12, Sydney notes a BLT salad with buttermilk dressing. Now, I love a good homemade dressing. There's nothing like saving money on something like that. As the spring approaches, I am certainly going to be putting this on my recipe list, on my meal plan. I do find buttermilk can be a bit expensive, so I mean, that's great if she's fitting it into her budget, but I do have a couple tips for you. You can do one of two things. If you don't want to buy buttermilk, you can actually just add milk and then a little bit of lemon juice or vinegar. There's some great recipes for that, so I will put those down below for you. Or you can actually make your own buttermilk. So if you are able to get heavy cream, you can not only make buttermilk, but you can make butter, and you can actually turn that in your own mixer. So that's a really neat way to save money, make something fresh on your own, and get 2 for 1. Number 13 is a sheet pan Greek chicken, and oh my goodness, this is definitely a favorite of mine. This is absolutely delicious and really easy to make, and I'm going to show you a recipe for that right now.
I'm going to start off by making kind of the marinade, and I'm using a half a cup of olive oil combined with the juice of a lemon. I think I might even just have half a lemon here, but we use what we can or what we have, and it still tasted amazing. And then you want to use 4 cloves of minced garlic, 2 teaspoons of dried oregano, 1 teaspoon of thyme, 1 teaspoon of Dijon mustard, a teaspoon of salt, and a half a teaspoon of fresh cracked ground pepper. Mix everything really well, and then in a large bowl, pour about 2/3 of your marinade over 6 large bone-in chicken thighs, or in my case, I used chicken legs, so I had the leg and the thigh. that's just what they had at the store. I know supply chain issues. Also, like, it costs a lot less to buy the chicken like this. So it was delicious. And so both are an option, depending on what you can get to. So I poured 2/3 of a cup of that over there. And then you want to let this sit for about 10 to 15 minutes. While the chicken is marinating, it's the perfect time to slice up the veggies. So I'm just taking 1 large red onion and I'm going to slice that into wedges. And then I'm taking 1 yellow pepper. That's what I had. I think you could totally do red, green, whatever you have on hand. And slicing that up as well. You see off to the side there, I have my sheet pans. I actually have 2 because I just felt like the chicken thighs the chicken legs that I had were so large that I just wanted to put them on 2 different sheet pans. But it kind of depends on the size of your sheet pan and how much chicken. I think if I had the 6 chicken thighs, I probably would just use 1 and cook everything together. Also want to add a pint of cherry tomatoes. You could probably use some diced tomatoes too if you have them. And then the recipe actually calls for zucchini, but I didn't have any, so I didn't use any, but you can absolutely add a zucchini or 2 in here and just slice it up. And I think that would be delicious actually. Then you just want to pour the rest of your marinade over your vegetables. At this point, your 10 to 15 minutes should have passed, so you can just put your chicken right on your sheet pans. You want to cook this at 425 degrees for 30 minutes. While the chicken was cooking, I just crumbled up a 4-ounce block of feta cheese and diced up some parsley. Now, the recipe also calls for some Kalamata olives. In our family, we're not a fan of olives like that, so I didn't put any in, but you absolutely can grab a can of those. And once your chicken comes out 30 minutes later, you want to sprinkle that feta and the olives right into the chicken mixture and then cook it for another 15 minutes. And you want to wait till the chicken gets to about 165 degrees. Once the chicken comes out of the oven for the final time, sprinkle it with the parsley and serve. You can eat it just like this. If you added in those olives and zucchini, it would be even more robust. I happen to serve this with a side of rice pilaf, and the vegetable mixture over the rice pilaf combined with that chicken was absolutely fantastic. I would 10 out of 10 recommend.
Number 14 is buffalo chicken egg rolls. Now we have a house divided here. Myself, Dan, Julian all love buffalo. We like spicy stuff like that, but Tommy and Benny are not going to be on the same page. So for us, it's kind of not one of those ones that we're all going to agree on, and not something that I've necessarily tried, although I have made buffalo chicken dip many, many times. But I definitely recommend that if you are a buffalo chicken lover, you give it a shot. The recipe looks delicious. Number 15 is an Instant Pot Ramen. Now, I've actually never tried Instant Pot Ramen, so I'm excited to give this new method a shot, but I've made so much ramen over the years. I usually just buy the packages and add a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You've probably seen in some of my past videos that there is a teriyaki beef ramen that is one of my family's absolute favorites. They will down it every single time that I make it, and it's super inexpensive because the majority of the meal is just ground beef and ramen noodles. Next up is ground beef stroganoff, and I actually know this as poor man's stroganoff, and I made this in my video poor man's recipes. So I think originally it's used, like a sirloin or a steak or something like that, but with ground beef, it's still absolutely delicious. Ground beef can be very inexpensive. I try and get mine for less than $3 a pound these days. It used to be $2, but I still feel like that's a good deal. And you can actually a lot of times use like 3/4 of a pound versus a pound of it. Mix that with, it's like a little bit of sour cream and some tomato paste. Use egg noodles, which again, you can get like the Dollar Tree, and you can make up an amazing and delicious meal that feels very, very hearty for spending very little money. For number 17, she shares chili con carne, which I think is just like meat chili. And I have made so many chilies over the years. It never gets old. It's something that it doesn't matter when you're having it, where you're having it, you're always going to enjoy it. For me, I'm like, I was talking about it the other day. I'm like, it may not be my favorite thing in the world to have chili, but I never regretted having a chili. I never I shouldn't have had that chili. Like, it's always a good time. I always feel filled and warmed in my belly and fulfilled after eating it. And I actually feel like a lot healthier than a lot of other things because there's not a lot of oils in it. There's not a lot of carbohydrates, and you can top it with so many good toppings: sour cream, cheese, cilantro. Overall, You can make it from pretty much anything you have in your pantry. Like, I have thrown together so many different chilies in so many different ways just based off of the type of beans that I have, the type of meats that I have, or maybe the fact that I didn't have any meat. I have often used, I was out of chili powder the other day, so I used taco seasoning. It's very forgiving and it usually makes a lot of food. For number 18, there's a recipe for lighter baked broccoli mac and cheese. And I feel like this is such a classic. I probably made this for my kids dozens of times. And I've also done variations of this for dinner. So you can kind of use really any pasta. And when you mix broccoli into it, especially already cooked broccoli, I love to just buy the microwave stuff, put it in the microwave, and then throw it into the pasta, even if the recipe doesn't call for it. And you end up getting more vegetables. My kids end up eating it because it's not just like broccoli sitting there staring them in the face. And it really adds something to your meal, to that pasta dish. Number 19 is the easiest buffalo chicken sliders. And as we mentioned before with the Philly cheesesteak sliders, great thing for a Friday night, really something to look forward to, a good thing to bring to potlucks or friends' houses as well. And she notes the value of a rotisserie chicken, which I wholeheartedly agree on. I am a big fan of either roasting your own chicken or buying a rotisserie, whichever is cheaper, whichever is easier, and then using that meat. Also, when you use that meat, you can save that carcass and make bone broth or chicken stock. And you can actually freeze that stock so that the next time that you need it for a recipe, you have it on hand. And that saves a ton of money versus buying the stuff at the grocery store. And I'll tell you, it is 10 times more delicious. That's one thing I learned from some chefs at a podcast. I think it was the Bon Appetit podcast back a while back, probably years. And they were talking about how much they hate store-bought chicken broth and you have to make your own. Now, I'm totally not 100% in agreement with this because there are times when the store-bought stuff is super helpful and there's times when chicken bouillon is super helpful, especially if you're trying to save a penny. But buying that rotisserie chicken is definitely a 2-for-1 deal and you're gonna get a lot of bang for your buck. Number 20 is 100% a family favorite in our household as well. It is sheet pan honey mustard pretzel chicken with potatoes. And I'm gonna share that recipe with you right now. It is so delicious and I know you will love it.
So I'm just taking, it's about 2 cups of pretzel sticks and putting them into my food processor. Now, if you don't have a food processor, no fear, you can just put these into a freezer bag or a Ziploc bag or a trash bag, who even cares, and just smash them up. You just want to make sure that your pretzels are really ground up. They're almost like a flour, but more like a breadcrumb, I guess. You want to pour your crushed breadcrumbs into a shallow bowl. And hey, real life, it all fell in there. We're going to end up dredging our chicken into our pretzels, so you want to make sure that you have a bowl that is shallow and wide enough to do that. Then I'm going to add a 1/2 cup of flour to the same size bowl, and then 2 eggs to the next, again, same size bowl. If you don't have the exact same size, I'm sure it's fine. Just make sure that you have something that you can dredge your chicken in. And then to those eggs, you want to add 1 tablespoon of Dijon mustard. Then just give those eggs and the Dijon mustard a good mix. Then you just want to line your sheet pan with some parchment paper and set everything else aside. If I were to do this again, I would have actually used a larger sheet pan, so I would recommend one that's a little bit larger than the one that I used. Now here the recipe calls for a 1/2 cup of Dijon mustard and 3 tablespoons of honey. Now I didn't really have a 1/2 cup left of Dijon mustard, so I just added a little bit of water to my Dijon mustard container and everything turned out absolutely fine. So, sometimes you just have to improvise, and it was just great as it was. So you just want to mix up that entire mixture and then set that aside. And then again, we're kind of improvising here. So the recipe calls for fingerling potatoes, but I had white potatoes. So I am just slicing up 2 larger white potatoes just to make sure I have enough for the family. And then I'll be tossing that in the mustard and honey mixture and pouring that onto a sheet pan. Now for chicken today, I'm using about 1.25 pounds of chicken tenders. The original recipe calls for boneless, skinless chicken thighs. And I think if I were going to make this again, I would have used the boneless, skinless. They were right about that. They think they just would have turned out a little bit juicier and given the chicken a little bit more flavor. So you just want to salt and pepper your chicken tenders or thighs very well. And now we're going to dredge our chicken tenders. So I have my bowl of flour, my bowl of eggs and Dijon mustard, and my bowl of pretzel crumbs. You just want to start with the flour, then add the tender to the egg, and then finally put it inside of the pretzel crumb mixture. I found that this actually covered the chicken tenders so much better than I thought it would. Like, I thought this was going to take me a lot of time. I thought I'd have to get my hands in there, but I had absolutely no problem just using a fork, dipping it in one, dipping it in the other, and finally dipping it in the pretzels, and then placing them onto my sheet pan. Once all of your tenders are breaded, you just want to place this in an oven preheated at 425 degrees for 25 minutes. Now, the original recipe does call for some vegetables with this, but we decided to serve ours with a salad. And here is what everything looks like when it comes out of the oven. This is a beautiful dish and it has so much flavor. Like I said, I would have used the boneless, skinless next time, but it was still really good with the chicken tenders, and we actually served them with a little bit of homemade honey mustard on the side. The kids absolutely loved this one, and the potatoes were a big hit as well.
As things start to come to a close for number 21, she's got Greek chicken meatballs with tzatziki sauce, and that sounds delicious. I have not tried those, so I'm gonna have to add it, especially to the spring menu. I feel like it's a bright dish that we could really enjoy in April or May. And tzatziki sauce can be on sale for like $2 a package, or you can make your own with sour cream, cucumber, and what else is in it? I think it's like sour cream, cucumber, and garlic, and it's really, really good. Those type of things are really great to kind of roll over to and use as lunches the next day because it's gonna hold up really well. And last but not least, number 22 is perfect chocolate chip cookies. And this reminds me of how Mindy from See Mindy Mom always says in her extreme grocery budget challenges that she tries to get something sweet. So if you're on a strict budget and you're trying to save money, you gotta try and find a way to just sneak a sweet treat or just something special to you into your meal. So even if sugar isn't your thing, try and see if you can each week get something that makes you feel like you're not on a budget, right? So that you don't feel like you're penny pinching all the time, and you're still gonna save money. And if you can set your budget so that you can still afford that one thing that you really care about, or that makes you, I don't know, it just makes you feel better, do it. I think that it helps you long term in order to sustain a very strict grocery budget, like $120 a week for a family of 5. I think that with recipes like this in your arsenal, you can absolutely do it. I know that it can be done, it will be done, and you're gonna eat great. I think this definitely takes a little bit of preparation. It takes a little bit of willpower at the store so that you stick to the one thing that is the special thing versus buying them all. You gotta stick to that list, you gotta shop the sales, and you can eat well without spending an arm and a leg, and that you don't need to feel like you're suffering in any way. It can be done. I have so many videos on this, so go ahead and check out these next budget cooking videos to get inspiration for your future. I know you can do it, I believe in you, and make sure the next time you're on YouTube, you're watching Meals with Maria.
5 out of 5.